The way a game developer chooses the default settings can completely change how you experience that game, and most of us never even notice, because we just play the game as it's presented to us. Let's look at EA's new Skate. When you load that up, there are all kinds of assistive settings switched on by default. The flip assist makes sure that you land tricks even when you mess them up, and the grind assist helps you stick to rails more easily. These settings quietly smooth out the gameplay experience in the background. But the thing is, you don't always know that these settings are on in the first place. There isn't a message telling you that they're activated. Unless someone points these settings out to you, or you look through the menus yourself, you'll never even realise those settings exist. When I first played Skate, I honestly thought it was designed so you couldn't miss flip tricks. It does feel like the flip tricks kind of complete themselves when you're near the floor. Actually, I can't even make myself bail. I only started questioning it because I played the older Skate games, and it felt different to play. And I think that raises an important question. Why are these assistive settings turned on in the first place? Maybe EA is expecting a wave of new players who've never touched that franchise before and wants the game to feel smoother for them. Maybe it's about making you feel successful, stopping you from bailing so often, and leading you to think that you're better at the game than you really are, which in turn increases your engagement with the game. Whatever the reason is, those choices will reveal something about that developer's intent behind those settings. They decided what your default experience will be. And the truth is that these default settings have been quietly changing the way that we play games for years, and most of the time we never even realise it. In Mario Kart 8 there's a setting called Smart Steering, and this is switched on by default. What this setting does is it stops you from driving off the edges of the track, but sometimes it can also block shortcuts or risky corner cuts, and it pushes your kart back onto the course without you steering. For many people, they didn't realise why they couldn't fall off the track or take certain shortcuts, because they thought that's just how the game worked. And if you do look on Google, you'll find many articles and videos on how to turn this setting off. So this default setting has clearly bothered a lot of players. And when I first played Mario Kart 8, I did think that the steering felt strange compared to the older Mario Karts. I didn't think much of it at first, but it wasn't until I tried to actually forcibly drive off the track when I realised the game wasn't going to let me. And then when I try and use certain shortcuts, the kart would automatically steer away from them, and I wondered what was going on. At the time, I didn't even realise that there was a smart steering setting turned on. I'd only recently been playing Mario Kart Wii, and this setting did not exist. So I didn't expect the game to be trying to help me in that sort of way. But if we think about the developer intent behind this default setting, it's likely that Nintendo wanted to include it so younger or casual players could enjoy the game without constantly falling off the track and getting frustrated. But if there really are that many guides on the internet showing you how to turn this setting off, should the default setting really be having that mode activated? Maybe most players, who may be the silent majority, are actually fine with this setting, or still unsure as to what is going on behind the scenes. In 2016, Minecraft had a new setting added to the game that was left on by default, and that was called Auto Jump. This meant that your character would now automatically jump up small blocks without the need to constantly press the jump button. This was with the aim of smoothing out movement and walking on surfaces, but when this default setting got added to the game, there was an online backlash against it, with people saying that they did not see the need for this setting to be enabled by default. It's a form of involuntary movement, taking control away from the player, and that it should be turned off by default. Personally, I was okay with the auto jump feature, because I could now run across the landscape of Minecraft and not have to smash the spacebar button every time I wanted to jump up small blocks. But I did notice that default setting being added to the game because I had played Minecraft from its earlier versions when auto jump did not exist. But newer players, who have started playing Minecraft since that assistive setting was added to the game, may never even realise that this setting was switched on. This is an argument between accessibility and control. The auto jump setting can help players who may have limited ability to use a controller, or people who find constant jumping a tedious experience. But for the players who want that precision and full control over their character, the automated jumping felt like a setting that acted without your input and took control away from the player. So there's a tension here. Should the default setting be turned off to respect the control of the player, or should the default be left on for the players who may need it? In any case, there should be effort made to ensure the player knows that this setting exists. Assassin's Creed is a good example of how developers' intent behind these settings can shape the player's experience. And in this news article on Ubisoft.com, Mikel goes into some of the details and thoughts behind these settings. In the first Assassin's Creed, Altair would auto-grab ledges and vault objects if you held the correct buttons. And that was a baseline default setting, with the intent to make parkour feel smooth instead of a punishing experience. In later Assassin's Creed games, that background assistance setting got ramped up. In later games, controls were streamlined. Players just needed to hold one button to free run and climb, which cut down on accidental leaps and back ejects from high places. By Assassin's Creed Origins, holding a single parkour button would let you climb obstacles and free run. This would also let you grab available handholds automatically whilst dropping, so there was no need to parkour down. But there were criticisms of these hidden default settings. One slight move in the wrong way and you'd end up climbing in a way that you didn't mean to. Some people would argue that the parkour now feels too on rails, that the game felt easier and smoother but less under the player's control. But then again, other people would say that's exactly what the point of these default settings were. Ubisoft wanted parkour to feel cinematic. These default settings weren't hidden toggles that you could flip. They were design decisions. Ubisoft shaped this experience so that the average player could flow through the world without frustration, but it was at the cost of some precision for players who wanted more control. In the Smash Bros. Series, there is a default setting that if you press up on the control stick, it causes the character to jump. Many competitive players of the game will turn this setting off immediately to avoid any accidental jumps. But some default settings aren't strictly gameplay related. Many of them are visual settings. Many games ship with a narrow field of view and have motion blur enabled by default. This may come along other settings such as camera shake or head bobbing. For some players, these default settings can cause motion sickness or even headaches, but especially in first-person view games such as Call of Duty. And players who do experience motion sickness and headaches may not even realise that these default settings are what's causing it, and that by simply turning off motion blur and upping the field of view slider, that they'd find the game much more comfortable to play. These default settings are often chosen for immersion's sake or to make the game feel more cinematic, but sometimes these settings are set low for performance issues. A console or a computer has to work so much harder when the field of view slider is turned up. So these settings may be dialed back to ensure that you're able to get higher frame rates by default. But the thing is, with default settings, most of the time they're invisible until you notice them. And I'd even go further to say that the first time that you interact with a game, these default settings could be your preferred way of playing the game. If you load up a first-person view game for the first time, whatever your mouse sensitivity is set to, or your controller stick sensitivity is set to, may end up being the sensitivity that you prefer. So whether it's the new skates stopping you from bailing flip tricks on flat ground, Mario Kart steering you back onto the road, Minecraft jumping for you, or Assassin's Creed climbing for you, every one of these default settings carries the developer's intent. A small choice made in a settings menu becomes the way that millions of people experience an entire game. Thank you so much for the support from the Patreon members, and click this video that's popped up now to find out why so many of us have started our own retro games collections.